Hello, welcome to the latest video lesson, this time focusing on the poem The Charge of the Light Brigade by Alfred Tennyson. I think this is on both Edexcel and AQA Power and Conflict anthologies. Alright, let's go. Okay, so as usual with the poems, I'll break it down into its component parts. So what's it about? This poem describes a disastrous battle between the British cavalry and Russian forces during the Crimean War, 1853 or 1854 to 1856. Of the 637 soldiers who took part in this battle for the British cavalry, I think 235 or so were either killed or injured, which is a huge percentage. The title Light Brigade, by definition, were lightly equipped for the intense battle that faced them. They came up against cannons and heavy weaponry as opposed to just their swords. Charge reflects their determination and bravery at following orders despite knowing the inevitable outcome, because they knew the order was incorrect. And what themes does it centre on? Well, effects and reality of conflict, bravery, admiration, patriotism and individual experience. Context: despite believing their orders may have been misunderstood, the cavalry, armed only with swords, charged into a valley where they faced Russian soldiers armed with guns and cannons. Many of the British soldiers were killed, but were hailed for their bravery. Tennyson himself was asked to write a poem as a tribute to the men who died. Form and structure. So the form, it's narrated in the third person to seem like a story. The regular, relentless rhythm creates a fast pace, mimicking perhaps the soldiers' advance. Intermittent rhyming couples and triplets provide momentum, but interspersed unrhymed lines could mirror the soldiers as they fell. The overall lack of a regular rhyme scheme could reflect the chaos that ensued. Remember, it's great to identify techniques, but to get the top band, you need to explore their effect. What impact do these techniques have? Okay. The structure of the poem. The poem tells the story of the battle chronologically, from the charge to the retreat, before concluding with references to the soldiers' heroism. Excuse me. Language and imagery. Okay, the poem is full of violent and heroic language, from plunged, shattered and sundered to horse and hero fell. Now, I'm going to go through the poem and annotate it stanza by stanza. There's use of alliteration and sibilance, sound techniques which bring energy to the poem. Repetition throughout emphasises the battle, flashed and cannon, whilst repetition of not at the end of stanza 5 highlights how many men died. And again, I'll explore that in more depth as we go through the poem. Here we go through the poem. So in the black writing there, just a kind of some general observations that run through all 6 stanzas. Regular rhythm throughout creates a fast pace, mimicking the cavalry's advance, with the overall lack of rhyme scheme hinting at the chaos of war. Observe the last line in each stanza and how it evolves. So these two, rode the 600 and rode the 600. We'll see how these two lines, the last line in the subsequent stanzas, play out. Okay. Half a league, half a league, half a league onward. All in the valley of death rode the 600. Forward the light brigade. Charge for the guns, he said. Into the valley of death rode the 600. So, death right at the start, warning reader of what's to come. Kind of foreshadowing, ominous, straight away. Commanding officers speaking, so we have some actual speech in the poem. And rode the 600. They're represented as one group with one purpose. Forward the light brigade. Was there a man dismayed? Not though the soldier knew someone had blundered. Theirs not to make reply, theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do and die. Into the valley of death rode the 600. Soldiers aware that the order was a mistake, but they obeyed nonetheless. The repetition there, theirs, reflecting their obedience. And into the valley of death. It's a biblical reference reflecting the solemn tone and significance of this decision. Canon to right of the. So let's look at the last line. So rode the 600 again. That's the same as the first two. Now it's not the 600. Then they rode back, but not the 600. So emphasis there that not all came back, not all returned, so alluding to those who died. Repetition at the start and end of lines reflecting how the soldiers were surrounded. Cannon to right of them, cannon to left of them, cannon in front of them. So they were surrounded by the Russian soldiers. Volleyed and thundered, stormed at with shot and shell. So sibilance here could be reflecting the shots being fired at them. Boldly implies or hints at their bravery. And then images personifying death, into the jaws of death, into the mouth of hell. So images personifying death and hell, reflecting the horror of the situation. Flashed all their sabres bare, flashed as they turned in air, sabring the gunners there, charging an army, while all the world wondered. A reminder it's swords against bullets. It's an unequal battle. Why have I picked charging, plunged and reeled? What are they? Well, a series of verbs that increase the pace of the action. So we're getting close to the climax. Sibilance again, sounding awful. Shattered and sundered. Then they rode back, but not the 600. So remember, there's some rhyme scheme, there's some rhyming, but it's not regular. Repetition of not, highlighting the deaths of some of the soldiers. And the last two stanzas. Let's see the last line. Left of the 600, noble 600. So there's the feeling about the soldiers, the perception of them. They should be honoured because they were brave and courageous and noble. Cannon to right of them, cannon to left of them, cannon behind them, similar to the previous stanza with the repetition at the beginning and the end of the line. Then we have volleyed and thundered again, onomatopoeic verbs reflecting the noise from the cannons, stormed at with shot and shell, again with sibilance, with horse and hero fell, alliteration. They had fought so well, came through the jaws of death, back from the mouth of hell. So telling the story and linking to previous points in the story. The bravery they showed, all that was left of them, left of 600. So roughly 400 came back unharmed, but 230 plus were either killed or injured. Repetition of left reminds us of those who didn't make it. When can their glory fade? Oh, the wild charge they made, all the world wondered. Honour the charge they made, honour the light brigade, noble 600. There's imperative language instructing us to honour them. Rhetorical question challenging the reader. Repeated command to the reader to honour the soldiers. Okay, and a final screen. Summary of main poetic devices used. You can use these in your analysis. Rhythm, rhyming couplets and triplets, irregular rhyme scheme, chronological order, violent imagery, heroic imagery, repetition, and then little revision task is, can you explain the effect of each one of these techniques, each one of these devices? I mean, go through the video again and make notes on that as you go through it. Some useful vocabulary to use when analysing. Tribute, admiration, bravery, courage, pride, patriotism, horror, misunderstanding, accountable, needless, battle, dramatic. Links to other poems. So if you're following the AQA anthology, you can link it to Effects of Conflicts in Poppies, Remains and War Photographer, and the Realities of War in Bayonet Charge and Exposure. If you're on the EdXL anthology, you can link it to the Effects of Conflict in Poppies and What Were They Like. In The Man He Killed and Exposure, you can go to the Reality of Conflict. Okay, there's plenty there, enough there for you to incorporate into your top grade answer on the anthology section in the exam. All right, check back in for all the other videos on the other poems and see you there. Bye bye.